Hello and welcome to a Maytar Gaming video. Today we're looking at the game Roll. Roll is available on Steam and there's a link in the description below. In this video we're going to be looking at one of the more advanced strategies in the game, but if you want to see more gameplay then I suggest checking out some of the other YouTubers that are also producing great content for the game. I can highly recommend Gothic Lord UK and Aliens Rocks channels, which got me interested. With this video, I've tried to create a helpful tutorial on the 16 dice lottery strategy, which is one of the more complex setups in the game and not the easiest to achieve. Here's a screenshot from towards the end of this game, showing the setup we're trying to build. The critical part of this build is the middle cross, highlighted here. This is the core of the score generations to push for very high scores on the leaderboard. However, before we can get to that, we need to start with the early game. Getting this part right is critical, because if you don't, you'll end up using too many rolls later on and will never be able to get the final build done in time. I've sped the video up here quite a bit, as there's not too much technique involved in the early game, but the most important thing is the strategy, which is to build a lot of base value on your first die. This means using the first shop level to get large numbers that can be multiplied up later on and increase your income. Now there are various strategies on this, but they all have a similar concept. This is around the number 97, the largest prime that you can create in Roll. Some people end up getting 2 faces to 97, some people go for 1 face to 97. Personally, I go for 1 face to 97 and a second face to 47, which I can double at a later date to build the score, saving me a few rolls at this point and giving me the option for either a +1 or +3 after doubling it to make it a face that can hit some nice multipliers and build a decent bit of score. Anyway, as long as you build some value, you really can't go too wrong at this point. Once you have that all set, go for the shop upgrade to stage 2. For a lottery run, there really isn't anything we want at shop level 2, so I will usually go straight on and upgrade to shop level 3 immediately. Once you get to shop level 3 though, there are a few bits that we want to pick up. At this point, it's about multiplying up that value to carry on increasing our basic income. Don't get tempted to put stuff on the other dice. That'll end up just making things more expensive and not really helping your build income in a useful way. So we want to double that 47 as soon as possible, but we're also looking for attached multipliers, the 50% chance of scoring 100, and 6 single re-rollers for that first die. Do pay for a few shop refreshes at this level if it helps to find these things. It shouldn't be too expensive to refresh the shop at this stage. Then when you're ready, go for the shop upgrade to the 4th shop. It's important to have grabbed at least 1, but if possible 2 50% 100s, because they'll become rarer as you upgrade the shop, and they're very important later on in the game. Anyway, now we're going for shop level 4. We need to start getting a few other key things in place. We still want to be adding value to that first die. Mostly we're doing this with void faces and 6 triple re-rolls if we can. We also want to pick up a couple of shop refreshers to put on the top die. There are a few other bits which can be useful, but don't be tempted to buy passives that raise your score at this point. We don't need them right now, and that will start to make your shop prices more expensive. Try to get 3 void faces on the central die, and maybe even a 2 times previous. However, the most important thing we're looking for in this shop level is the no 99s reroll. This is critical for later in the game when we're going to be using locks to duplicate things we have bought, and we want these locks to re-roll by the passive re-roller to get them to unlock much faster. Re-roll the shop as much as it takes to get the no 99 re-roll. Some of the passives which don't boost your score at this point can also be handy to pick up, such as lucky re-rolls, but they're not essential. Again, as with the level 3 shop, keep refreshing the shop as much as you need until you get that re-roll passive, and at least a couple of voids and a couple of shop refreshers. Once all that's in place, you can then go for the final shop upgrade. Up until that point, it's not really too tricky. It's just a little RNG luck required to get the essentials that you need in order to build this early game setup. When you find the no 99s reroll, if you have anything on the page that will build your score a little bit extra, like a void face or a ×10, then that can help buy it a lot quicker in terms of number of rolls. If you see a +1 or a +3, also pick that up just to make a 95 or 97 on that second face on your first die. Now we've got the final shop upgrade, the real fun begins. This is where we're starting to look at our final lotto build. First off, we're looking for 2 wild faces and 2 10 times previous roll faces to put on the top die with those shop refreshers. Keep ignoring any score building passives, they will just make things more expensive later. If you need to, you can buy 1 or 2 of the smaller ones if it helps when you need to buy the wilds and the 10 times previous. But don't go for things like top 3 or anything which will stop working later, such as less than 6 die bonuses. The plan here is to get the expensive faces that we're going to need and then use locks to duplicate them. Again, keep re-rolling the shop until you are close to having this all set. I was a little unlucky in this run. The RNG didn't want to give me many of the 10 times previous faces, so I had to keep re-rolling. I actually make a decision here to get into the next phase a little bit earlier with only 1 10 times previous reroll on the top die, because I see there's a 300 lock, but also there's the no weights reroll here, which drastically improves matters. So I use the lock on the top die while I'm trying to build up the value to buy the no weights reroll. This will make further locks unlock even quicker. So this is now the next phase where we're duplicating that top die. If you have two 10 times previous reroll faces on it, then you're going to want to duplicate it twice. This is so that we end up with 6 faces across all our dice which have 10 times previous reroll, and 6 faces that have wilds. We'll then be rearranging them so that we have one die with all wild faces and one die with all 10 times previous roll faces. While you're looking to do this, keep an eye out for the 77k 1% lottery chances, and if you find any, put them on the right hand die. Similarly, we're looking to build this up to all 6 faces being the 77k lottery, because we need 4 of those in our final build. Keep refusing passives that build score too early. They'll just make the shop more expensive, which we don't want at this stage. Again, in this run, the RNG was a little unfortunate for me in that I wasn't getting any of the 77k faces here. Here I'm just checking how many rolls required to unlock that top die, so that I can then start doing the rearrange of faces to make sure I've got all the wilds on one die and all the 10 times previous on a second die. So I'm using face moves to get that set up in place. I saw on this shop level the non-standard multipliers passive, which is one that's fundamental to this strategy, but at this stage it's just too expensive to buy. This part of the strategy is now all about rearranging these faces, so you're just keeping an eye out for these face swap options. Because I had the issues with only having one 10 times previous roll, I actually only have 3 of those faces, so I prioritise that, knowing that I'm then going to duplicate that die again to get 6 10 times previous roll faces. If the run's perfect, then you end up with the 6 shop refreshers on a third die, so that you only need 4 face swaps to get everything set up. If you do see the passive here to be able to stack multipliers, that can be good to pick up earlier in the game, so that you've got the ability to gradually build attached multipliers on some of the important faces. Here you'll see is my first 77k finally. Now with those shop refresher faces, I'm getting plenty of shop refreshes for free available. All this work's being done so that we can set up a Yahtzee on the 77k, a Yahtzee on the 10 times previous roll, which is going to be our main scoring die, which will end up being the one with the void faces we put at the beginning. which will then go over and be caught by a 20% 0.25 total roll, which will be adjacent to 2 die which are full of wilds. This can get scores up in the E29, E30 region very comfortably. I'm prioritising shifting all the 10 times previous reroll faces here because we need 4 of those die. So I need to get that one set up as early as possible. We can worry about the wilds and other bits later. I'm having to buy quite a few face swaps here because of the challenges I had at the beginning where I only had one 10 times previous roll. There's a few passives that we need towards our end strategy, one of which there was slot machine. I decide here my value that I'm building is increased enough recently that actually the non-standard multipliers is finally a good price compared to my income, so that it's not going to cost me too many rolls to get it. Finally now we've got all our wilds on 1 die. Still being very unlucky with the 77k faces, not getting many of them at all. We're now getting towards the final phase where we're going to multiply out our 10 times previous roll. We're going to multiply our wild. We're going to multiply the 77k faces once we fill a die with it, and then arrange the dice into that setup that I showed you at the beginning. At this stage, we can also now be starting to buy the passives. That's going to be building our score, helping us buy these final few bits that we need. So I'm still buying the 77k's, trying to fill up 1 dice on that, and also buying some of the other faces we need on our left-hand middle die, which is the 20% 0.25 entire roll faces. Those have the attached multipliers to them as well, which allows them to multiply up and generate a really big score. I pick up a couple of 77k faces and put on the bottom die here, knowing that I can move them later for the 77k die that I locked on the middle, which was missing 177 off one face. So I'm going to end up with 2 die which only have 5 of the 6 faces being 77k. At this stage, I'm just keeping my eye out for more passives that are essential for the build. Some face swaps so that they're ready when the 77k unlocks, and making sure that as die unlock, if I need more copies of them, I lock them again. So you're looking for 4 copies of the 10 times previous roll. You're looking for 4 copies of a die with all faces being 77k. You're looking for 2 copies of a die with all wild faces. Picking up the Yahtzee bonus there, so that will start kicking in because we've got the non-standard multipliers that will be able to affect our 77k and our 10 times previous roll. Top 3, the pass we just got there it's a big one. It's highly impacting, so if you get that early, that can spike your score far too early, so that things are very, very expensive. That's why I usually leave that one fairly late in the game. You'll see I'm down at 300 rolls here and still actually building the setup. That's got my 10 times previous on my key score generation die, and also I bought all in at that stage. It was a bit of a risky move considering I haven't got a full lottery set up yet, but I was close enough that I figured it would be okay. I'm just checking and realised at that point I don't actually have rigged machine yet either, which is another passive that's absolutely critical to get this to run. Thankfully, after only a couple of shop refreshes, it does pop up for me, so I managed to get that in. I put some more attached multipliers and then look to get a 77k face on my score die. My score die is now all set up, so when that hits, it will give me a decent roll. I'm now just looking at getting the final bits in place. You can see there I'm already into the E16s. As I've been building score, actually things like 10 times the entire roll become fairly cheap if it spikes up. So there I spiked to E21, which gave me a good amount of income to be able to add these extra bonus bits. These are not essential to the whole strategy working, but they help the score, so I still pick them up while I'm trying to get my remaining die in place. The passive I'm just going for here is also quite fundamental. It's the wild adjacency bonus, so giving me 10 times the score that I would otherwise be getting on my wild faces. I just buy a random die there to make sure I've got a square number of die, so I've got 16 dice now, and so that's going to give me extra bonuses onto the score. All of these bonuses add up to be able to multiply to quite a large score overall. Now getting e to the 23. Used some die move faces, some die move options to set up that middle row. So every other dice is a 77k, and then the two in the middle or between them are going to be multiplied by slot machine. Now the setup is pretty much there. I'm just hunting for any final bits and pieces that are going to add to the score to spike it up. I'm down 134 rolls to go, so towards the end, just picking up any final bits and pieces that might be able to help the run. Looks like I've got a pretty good set of passives here. There are a few that might help, but in general it's a pretty decent setup on this run. Doing a few more rolls here. And then finally the lottery hits. So I've got an E27 on that last roll. I've slowed the video down here a bit. I'm going to hover over so you can see the analysis of each of the die that are really generating my score here. You can pause the video at this point if you want to read it in more detail. So you can see the wilds give me my top level score because they're adjacent to the 20% faces, which are my highest scoring die, which are multiplied up of my main score generation, which is the die with all the voids on it. And that is the key to your 16 die lottery run. This wasn't a perfect run. There are a few bits and pieces I could improve, and as you'll see at the end, it's not even my highest scoring run. But hopefully that will help you learn how to set this up, how to get right up there on the top of the leaderboards. The final parts of this, it just rolls out, it doesn't trigger again, doesn't get me anything nice and big. So just leaves for me to say thank you very much for watching. If you've got any comments, please leave them down below. If you've got any other strategies you'd like me to set up a tutorial on, let me know. And otherwise, thank you very much.